Welcome to footballgameplan.com, where football makes sense. I'm Memory Hunt, the czar of the playbook. Bring you our 2013 NFL team preview. We're taking a look at the New York Giants. We're going to break down their offense, their defense, as well as their special teams to see what we can expect from the Giants this upcoming season.
There's no questioning who's the starting quarterback for the New York Giants is Eli Manning. And when you look at a guy that's as consistent as Eli, he is definitely one of the better quarterbacks in the league, if not one of the best in the league. I will take Eli Manning over Peyton Manning any day of the week because of his focus in the fourth quarter, and when crucial situations happen, Eli tends to rise to the occasion. And he also has had the benefit of working with Kevin Gilbride his entire career, and it's that type of continuity that will make you a better player. Now this year there will be a battle for the backup job. When you look at rookie fourth-round pick Ryan Nassib out of Syracuse, I love his athleticism, so now the Giants can move the pocket with him, get him on boots and waggles. He has a very strong arm, and his short to intermediate accuracy is excellent. And he's going to push former #1 overall selection David Carr for the backup job. Carr is a 12-year vet and is entering his third season with the Giants, has a pretty good handle on a playbook, so you can ultimately see the Giants keeping 3 quarterbacks this season. Gone is Ahmad Bradshaw, but the Giants have a pretty good starting tailback in David Wilson, a second-year man from Virginia Tech. What he brings to the table is explosiveness, the ability to hit the big play on any given carry, and I'm glad that Coughlin finally let him out of the doghouse last season and allowed him to be the running back that they expected him to be when they took him in the first round. But the biggest question mark I have will be the depth behind David Wilson. Yes, they have Andre Brown, who was sensational in the preseason and did some good things in the regular season once he was given the opportunity, but he hasn't been able to stay healthy. As a matter of fact, he's coming off of a broken leg. And they also have guys like Darrell Scott, Michael Cox, whom they drafted out of UMass this year, Ryan Terrain, but there's a legit question mark behind David Wilson. The one question mark that they don't have is at the fullback position, where Henry Hanowski is one of the best fullbacks in the league. The Giants have a fine trio of wide receivers led by the explosive Victor Cruz. One thing you could tell about Cruz is that he was well coached in college. His route running is outstanding. This is the guy that played a lot of football growing up. You can tell by the little nuances he has mastered in his craft. One thing people knock about his game is he tends to drop easy passes. It's not because he can't catch. It's due to a mental lapse in concentration because he's trying to make something happen after the play. But what the Giants really need is Hakeem Nicks to be 100% and ready to go for a full 16-game season. When he's out there at 100%, he's one of the more dangerous receivers in the league. Tremendous hands and does a great job in getting separation and always makes the contested catch. And I'm also excited to see what second-year player Ruben Randall can do in an expanded role in this offense. The unique part about Randall is that he has the size to be a split. He has the athleticism and the speed to be a flanker, but I think he's an ideal slot receiver. And now when you team him up next to Cruz and Hakeem Nicks, you give the Giants a formidable 3 wide receiver set. Now, when you look at the 4th and 5th receiver spots, I think that's going to be handled by Lewis Murphy and Jarrell Jernigan fighting out for those positions. And a tighter position, they upgraded as well, bringing in Brandon Myers from the Oakland Raiders. Yes, they lose a guy in Martellus Bennett who was supremely athletic, but Myers is very good in his own right and definitely a guy that can get down the field and catch the football. If I were to tell you that an NFL offense had an explosive passing attack, a very good running game, and their quarterback was the least sacked quarterback in the league, you think the offensive line was great, right? And that's what happens with the Giants' offensive front. They're a very good offensive line. The only question and concerns you may have about this team is injuries and consistency and depth. Those are some things that they have to get solved this season. That's why in the draft, they went after Justin Pugh, the tackle out of Syracuse, a versatile guy that can also play guard, and Eric Herman, a 6'4", 325-pound guard out of Ohio that's a very good football player. To team these guys up with the starters that they have, you look at tackle Will Beatty, one of the better tackles in the conference, had a great year last season. You also look at Kevin Booth, a versatile guy that can play guard or center. Selvis Capers will probably compete with Justin Pugh. They have David Dill still on the roster. They have depth. They do need David Boss and Chris Snead to make sure they're at 100% for the full 16-game season and not deal with those nagging injuries. Otherwise, yes, it can be an issue. But overall, as far as frontline starters are concerned, the Giants have a very decent offensive front. Giants have the talent on their defensive line to be successful. You look at their defensive end position, they're stacked with more talent than anywhere else on the roster. Jason Pierre-Paul is looking to get back to his 2011 season when he had double-digit sacks. He's having off-season surgery, should be ready for the start of the season. Justin Tuck is a guy that's versatile. Yes, he can get after the quarterback and he wants to regain that premier pass rushing form, but he's a guy that can kick down as a defensive tackle and get pressure. Matthias Kiwanuka is moving down back to the defensive end position after playing linebacker for a while, and now they've drafted Demontre Moore. Again, you never understand why the rich get richer. This is why. The Giants needed a pass rushing threat. They get the best one in the draft in Demontre Moore. All he did was sack the QB at Texas A&M. I don't know why he fell that far in the draft, and the Giants were able to grab him up. Now, when you look at the defensive tackle position, that's where the question lies. Not in the front line starters. There's depth questions behind them. Linval Joseph is a very good defensive tackle. He's in a contract year. Cullen Jenkins is the guy that they bring in from the Philadelphia Eagles and expecting him to be that interior pass rushing presence. But they also drafted Jonathan Hankins, a mammoth defensive tackle from Ohio State, to try to fill the void that they wanted Marvin Austin to be when they drafted him in the second round back in 2011. And if he can step up and be healthy for a full season, that's going to be a huge boost to that defensive line as they can get back to that rotation that made them one of the best pass rushing teams in the league. So when you look at the Giants defensive line as a whole, you have questions about the consistency and health, but definitely not the talent. When you look at the linebacking core, gone is Chase Blackburn, who was the second leading tackler on the team, and Michael Boley, who was an integral part to the team's defense last year. Now they have Jaquan Williams, who had a solid year last season. He's going to step in as a starter as the weak side linebacker. Speed and athleticism, doesn't make a lot of negative plays, and that's a good thing for this defense. They also have Keith Rivers, who they're banking on having a full, healthy season. And if he's able to do that, then the Giants definitely don't have a question at the strong side backer position. They also bring in Dan O'Connor from the Dallas Cowboys to be the middle linebacker this season, hoping he can solidify and replace what Chase Blackburn was able to do for these guys last year. But there's a lot of questions behind these guys. There's not a lot of depth. Yes, they have Mark Herzlich, whom they expect to step up and play more of an active role in the defense, but right now he's nothing more than a special teamer. And it seems like every year we question the Giants linebacking core, and 2013 will be no different. Corey Webster took a $3 million pay cut to come back to the Giants, and I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt because I still think he's a solid corner that just had a bad season. But you have to give props to Prince Amukamara for what he did last season, stepping up and becoming a solid player for the Giants in that secondary when it clearly became evident that Corey Webster's jersey was flammable. Amukamara stepped up and did a great job for the Giants at the cornerback position. Now the question lies, who's going to be the third and fourth corner? Yes, Terrell Thomas returns from injury, but this is his second time coming back from an injury, so he can't be counted on. You can't really depend on him to be that guy. That's why I like J-Ron Hosley, the second-year man out of Virginia Tech. Ball skills, instinct, and quickness, everything that you want to be that nickel cornerback, he possesses it. He also is a threat as a returner. And Aaron Ross may be a guy that you could have as a dime back, but it's good to have a guy like him on the roster because he has that veteran presence just in case Terrell Thomas can't come back at 100%. I believe they're fine at the safety position with their two starters. Stevie Brown had a sensational year last season for the Giants, 8 interceptions, led the team, and did a fine job being Johnny on the spot whenever they needed a big play in the passing game next to Antrell Rowe, who's one of the better safeties in the league. Now that third safety spot will be a battle between Will Hill, who played fine as a rookie, and Ryan Mundy coming over from the Pittsburgh Steelers. They also drafted Cooper Taylor, a guy that can play closer to the line of scrimmage as more of an outside linebacker, but I think they're fine with talent and depth at the safety position. Depth at the cornerback position is the biggest question mark. Special teams unit for the Giants should get a boost in the kicking game, bringing in Josh Brown, a talented kicker, strong-legged kicker from the Cincinnati Bengals that should help out with kickoffs. And Steve Weatherford is already one of the better punters in the game, does a great job in directional punting. But when you look at the return game, that's where the biggest question is going to lie. I don't think David Wilson's going to be back there anymore as a returner, and now he's going to be the starting running back. But Jarrell Jernigan, maybe Lewis Murphy, J-Ron Hosley, even a guy like Aaron Ross can do a fine job as a returner. So I think overall the Giants do have a solid special teams unit. Reasons for optimism for the New York Giants. Number one, they have a very explosive offense with Eli Manning at the helm. And two, The depth and talent along that defensive line, anytime they can get those guys back healthy, 100% rushing the passer, it helps out that entire defense, thus getting that ball back for the offense. Now on the flip side, the cause for concern would be the lack of depth at the running back position, the linebacker position, and quite honestly, even on the offensive line, there's some slight question marks back there with guys getting older and guys that can't stay healthy. So if there is a cause for concern for this season, it will be the lack of depth at certain spots on this Giants roster. Now let's take a look at what the Giants have. Number one, a great coaching staff. Continuity and consistency is the mantra of Tom Coughlin. He does a great job with that ball club. Eli Manning is a guy that's money in the fourth quarter. You can't go wrong with him. And defensive line talent. They can get pressure on the quarterback or they're going to improve themselves this season. Last year was a down year, but the talent is up front for these guys to be successful. Now what they lack, depth at certain positions. We talked about that before. They don't have an impact linebacker. I think that's something that's missing from this defense. And they don't have the consistency from the cornerback position. The road to the Super Bowl for the Giants goes as follows. Number one, the run defense has to improve. You want to get these guys in obvious passing situations so you then can unleash the pass rush. Number two, a good start and a good finish. You can't start fast and finish poorly. You can't start slow and finish strong. This is a very tough division, the NFC East is, and it's usually one game that can separate a team from the first spot to the fourth spot. So it's imperative that they get off to a good start and have a good finish. And defensive line has to get that swagger back. They got to get back to where they were 2 years ago when they were just sacking a quarterback all over the place. And that's how they can be the first team to host the Super Bowl at home. I have the Giants finishing second in the NFC East. Still a very talented roster, and they could put points on the board with that offense, that passing game in particular. I love the potential of David Wilson, and defensively, I think they'll get back to rushing the quarterback. The questions I have lie with the depth of the roster, and right now, I don't think the Giants are deep enough at certain positions, i.e. linebacker, cornerback, to make enough noise in the NFC East to come out as a winner of the division. And I also want to give a huge shout out to Giant fan forums for always showing football game plan support.